Thank you. I'll go ahead and call the March 14th regular Seward City Council meeting to order. Chief, could you read us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Tonight's roll call: Calhoun.
Here.
Casagrande.
Here.
Wells.
Here.
Dumas.
Here.
McClure.
Here.
Osenga is excused. Mayor Terry,
Yes.
you have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing, which we do have 3 public hearing items tonight. Those who have signed in will be given the first opportunity to speak. Time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker and 36 minutes total time for this agenda item. If you could just say whether you're inside or outside city limits once you come to the podium and state your name.
Madam Mayor, the first person signed in is Bruce Jaffa.
Okay, I won't take much of your time. Outside the city, mayor, manager, council, audience, I speak in support of the resolution of Resolution 2022-038. This resolution intends to help make a project that combines public and private funds, allows all interested participants to contribute, makes a strong statement for action, and a share in the eventual success. With this full heat loop project, we have an opportunity to blaze a trail that every coastal town worldwide can learn from. We can demonstrate how to extract heat from a replenishable source with minimal disruption. If that is not enough to promote this project, consider how it can reduce heating costs, even if they're minuscule. This additional heat source, one not currently in play, never be ashamed to pick up a penny laying on the ground. Consider a return of investment as only one factor of importance. As I said before, we build many things in our society that don't have an exact dollar-to-dollar return. Sistine Chapel was one that I mentioned. It may be a small way to help reverse a negative trend. We've grown into a culture that has come to expect government to do everything for everybody. My generation gained from the selfless contributions of so many in this country and the unabashed drive to find a new and better way to do things. Let's rejoin that movement. We need to do more for ourselves, tackle the difficult projects, find solutions to technical and financial problems, as the City of Seward has done so successfully for many years. Remember, projects like ABTEC and SMIC were the result of citizens making and gaining support outside the precise government circles. Now, I want to commend both council and administration for the efforts that they've made in promoting this and searching for grant opportunities and funding opportunities, and this resolution in no way is intended to diminish that. If anything, it would allow people to participate outside of city government and then enjoy the benefit of their work. And in fact, I think organizations like Ducks Unlimited, which marries public and private funds, this is what I have a concept we can do. If people can speak somewhat in the name of the City of Seward and say, here's a worthy project, we need help. It gives a lot more credibility and opportunity to raise funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Madam Clerk.
Next signed in is Tara Reimer.
Good evening, Tara Reimer, President and CEO of the Alaska Sea Life Center. It's okay. You probably spell it right if you don't pronounce it right. Inside city limits. And I'm going to apologize in advance that I'm also trying to attend the school board meeting right now and speak on item 13. They're on item 7. So I am signed in, Brenda, for a later item. I may leave and come back. But right now, I'm speaking to an item that is on the city manager's report about employee housing. The Sea Life Center has used several RV spaces in the waterfront campground for the last few years for volunteers who volunteer their time for us over the summer, and we in return pay a reduced cost that's designed to cover the utility costs of those boats staying there. And I know it's written in here that the city is talking about potentially using those spots for your own staffing needs this summer, and I would just ask you to, you're not limited. The spots don't open for public to reserve them until April 1st. You can allocate more spots than we've had. I think some years in the past we've had 6 spots. We definitely do not need 6 spots this year. Our formal request that we sent to administration was for 4. At this point, we are working on talking to 3 different potential groups. So we could easily go down to 3 spots. But we've lost a lot of housing for our summer folks this year. We lost a bunch of what we normally get from Outtech. We lost a bunch of what we normally get from the university. So as you all know, housing is a crisis in this town. We have regular full-time staff who are fairly senior staff who are losing housing at the end of April as well. So just asking you all that when that item comes up, that you consider supporting multiple groups, potentially, including us, using 3 of those spots. We also historically have worked with city administration about potentially rezoning one of our parking lots so that we could have employee housing in that parking lot. At the time, the staff did not believe that that made sense and believed that what we're currently doing made more sense. If going forward, it's going to make more sense for us to pursue that, we are more than happy to do that. It would basically be taking our bus lot, which is the one that's closest to the campground, furthest to the east, and rezoning that park. Right now it's zoned with the rest of our facility. But then I don't believe in park, there's actually the ability to have employee campgrounds. So while we could do that rezoning, so that's where we ran into the trouble. But again, I will be staying here potentially as long as I can, but I might have to jump out to testify at school board and come back. Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, I don't have anyone else signed in.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Tom Tugas, Bear Drive in city limits, and it's hard to follow Bruce, you know, but I do want to encourage the council to pass a resolution about the heat pump and the heat loop. Kind of reminds me of the beginning days of the library when you know, it was really a citizens group again that got it started, kept it going, and actually ended up raising 75% of the money that went into the library. But, you know, for many years, we had a alternative energy conference here in Seward every fall that was hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. And we had people from all over rural Alaska that would come to Seward and go through the heat pump system at the Sea Life Center. There was a presentation on the windmill at Avtech. There was lots of presentations about heat pumps. And it was amazing the amount of heat that comes into Resurrection Bay. It's warmer, ironically, based on the Sea Life Center's research, it's warmer in November than it is in July. And so I really think that we should focus on seeing how we can utilize the heat that we get free from Resurrection Bay that cycles in and out every tide. And so I'd really like, and you know, we had been granted this $725,000 grant from the Alaska Energy Authority, and I'd really like to see, hopefully, us continue that and look for alternatives, because I would love to see Seward become kind of the example in rural Alaska for heat pumps. You go to places like Sweden and Norway, and everybody, you know, has worse weather than we do, and yet they still live off these air source heat pumps. That of course run on electricity instead of diesel fuel, and of course the city of Seward happens to be in the electrical utility business. So really we're switching from paying Shoreside to paying the city of Seward. So you might think of that as well. But in any case, I encourage you to continue to pursue alternative energy for Seward and get us off diesel as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? State your name, sir, for the record.
Tony Bachman, Inside City Limits. I had an idea last week, And I'm not sure if it's the right idea, and I don't know, where we can go from there, maybe a survey or something, but I thought about solutions on housing and how we can work on housing, what things might work and might not work. But I thought about transportation and about the seasonal employee force that comes here. They don't have cars, right? So living out of town is hard for people because they have no transportation in. If you're going to pay for a taxi somewhere out of town, it's probably $25, $30 one way. So that's about maybe $50 a day in a cab. And we have infrastructure, this bus that runs around town, and maybe just extending it to different parts of out of town might get people to, encourage people to have more, maybe dry cabins where they can have, a lot of seasonal people don't mind living in dry cabins so that they can live out there, come into work. Even if it was, somebody had mentioned like, late night people who work, but even having transportation one way is, beneficial, or, work early in the morning, you have to go out. But I thought about that, and maybe, I don't think you would see the benefits right away. It takes so long for things to really work through a plan and try to get things to really come to fruition because there's so many moving parts of that. But I just thought that could possibly be one of the things that we could, and I don't know, you look at Girdwood, and their mass transit is, they use grants to run their mass transit. So maybe, there's different ways of looking to pay for it and make it work, but I just think we need to look for some solutions, and I wanted to bring that idea to you. I know that, with my new job, I kind of see the employment squeeze on everyone, and it's just, I used to live in Togety, which is about half an hour outside of Jackson Hole, and Jackson Hole Code, if you go to their website, there's a whole formula on if you want to have a new development in their town. It also goes on how much you're paying your employees because they have to be able to live there too, right? So you have to have 65% housing before you can start a new development. I don't want to see us get to that point. What can we do to fix it? So I know we went through all these ideas of housing and things going on, but maybe just starting the conversation again. I just thought that might be one idea. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes?
Linda Paquette, Outside City Limits. I'm really keying off of what Anthony was saying because in the strategic plan, which hasn't been updated since 1999, there's a bullet item there, or an action item, of beautifying all the way to Mile 8. And so I just want to remind people that there has been a mentality in town that extending beyond the city limits is something that we would consider to do for certain things. And I think that this idea of Anthony's is actually quite brilliant, because it is to try and house people out there, the distance from town is a barrier. I don't know how you justify paying for it and all of that, but I think it would be great if you guys would consider looking into extending that shuttle. Whether they got to ride for free, I don't know, but and because we have new administration, a couple of years ago, people in town had even entertained the thought of, it's not annexation, it's not all those other words, but somehow extending the ability for people outside of the current existing boundaries to participate more. So there are still a bunch of people in town that are interested in sort of growing the heart, and extending the shuttle would certainly be a great step. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, Hearing and seeing none, next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda, and I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda.
I will second.
Are there any changes or?
I would like to pull Resolution 2022-35 from the consent agenda.
Thank you. Any other changes? Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for a vote.
Voting on tonight's
Oh, I
agenda.
have one question. I know why. Go ahead. Go ahead, sorry.
Voting on the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda. Calhoun,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved and approved on tonight's consent agenda. Resolution 2022-032, requesting Seward be reestablished as an embarkation port of the Alaska Marine Highway System. Resolution 2022-033, allowing Bornstein Seafoods to occupy their employee campground located at 3201 Sorrel Road beginning March 17th, 2022. Resolution 2022-034, authorizing the city manager to purchase electric distribution materials, fuses, wire, conduit, and other miscellaneous materials from Annexter Power Solutions to ensure adequate inventory for the upcoming spring, summer, fall construction season in an amount not to exceed $87,050, including a 10% contingency. You've approved Resolution 2022-036, approving Amendment Number 3 to the employment agreement with the city clerk. Resolution 2022-037, approving Amendment Number 1 to the employment agreement with the city manager. You have approved the February 28, 2022 City Council regular meeting minutes, and you have a non-objection to the renewal of liquor license number 177 Beverage Dispensary Tourism for Breeze Inn.
Thank you. And before we get next to special orders, presentations, and reports, before we do our first proclamation, I just want to just quickly show the public, and it's going to be hard to see, but these are the gold pans that we're going to be sending to our sister port, Kashiro, and this is the mayor's trophy. And this is for their festival, their port festival that they hold. And then this is for their Hagen festival, and this is the mayor's trophy. So these turned out very nicely. And so you'll see it has underneath the lettering in our seal, it has an overlay of our topography in our city. So that was nicely done. So we're going to recognize the 103rd birthday of the American Legion. So whereas on March 15th, 1919, the American Legion was founded in Paris, France by a group of American soldiers who were still stationed in Europe after World War I. And whereas while these soldiers were awaiting passage home, they anticipated how poorly prepared the United States was to assist a wave of disabled and unemployed veterans. Whereas the American Legion's efforts resulted in combining all veteran services under one authority called the Veterans Bureau, to assist men and women obtaining benefits as they earned during their military service. Whereas the American Legion has influenced considerable social change in America while assisting millions of veterans in pursuing rewarding careers. And whereas today, with the membership now stands at 2 million Legionnaires with over 12,000 posts worldwide, including all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, France, Mexico, and the Philippines. Now therefore I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, Alaska, do hereby proclaim March 15th, 2022 as the 103rd birthday of the American Legion and recognize their legacy and accomplishments as they move forward with their commitment to serve our veterans, community, and our country. Dated this 14th day of March, 2022. Thank you. I just want to personally thank you because I've talked to so many people. I know so many Coast Guard, the Navy that comes here, just everyone just appreciates the Legion and everything that you do for the community with all your events, giving back. to this community specifically. I just want to personally thank you for everyone's work there.
Thank you, and thank you for your brother who's in the military, so he will be a Legionnaire, I'm sure.
Great. I'll let you say a few words.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody, this is really great. This is, like I was saying, it's written on here, it's the 103rd birthday of the American Legion. That's the national organization that we have. And if you didn't have the American Legion, you would not have the GI Bill. And he talked about the Veterans Bureau, actually it's the Veterans Administration. And on top of that, we have the Mission Act, which has allowed veterans to seek medical help at other places other than the Veterans Administration, because here we are in Seward, and if all of us, disabled veterans and others, had to go to Anchorage, that's a long haul going up and down all the time. So it permits us to go and utilize the facilities here. And with us being, one of the 12,000 posts, we're just the foot soldiers on the ground to try to help and bring things forward to everybody, in the community as well as our veterans. And Seward has a great veterans population and their families, and we're just so, so blessed to have everybody here. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Next on the agenda is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I start on that, I also wanted to thank the American Legion. I understand that they passionately fought for veterans' rights with regards to Agent Orange and Parkinson's, and my father recently passed away from Parkinson's, and we were able to receive help from veterans for his care, so thank you. So a couple items that I wanted to touch on, one being, I don't know, oh, she's still here. Okay, the subject that Ms. Reimer spoke about. Sorry. Anyway, regarding the campsite. So, as you know, we do have also an employee housing crisis, and that we've been talking internally about how to solve it. Trying to put anything on the table that would help. We currently have 2 police officers that are at the academy who have no place to live when they come back. They know this, and there's always the chance that they could get picked up by another municipality or even the state troopers, because the state troopers do try to take them while they're there, and they will provide housing for them. So we also have a public safety dispatcher who has been offered a position but will not come until there's some type of housing. So those are 3 examples of how critical we have, and of course we're moving into our also seasonal hires, and we don't have places for them to live either. So we are in a really big housing crisis, and so one of the items we thought about is allowing for also employee camping at the campgrounds. And so that was the premise for what I wrote in here. I know that we can add, allow more sites for us and for also the Sea Life Center. Doing so, just as you know, then also affects the campground revenue. So again, I'm just throwing all ideas on the table to see what we can do for our employees, and I certainly don't want other entities affected, but we do have to have our critical services as well. Another item, thank you, Mr. Jaffa. Yes, Mr. Jaffa, that I have in the manager's report is regarding the Heat Loop project. And we did have a meeting with NREL, National Renewable Energy Laboratory, regarding a grant opportunity. And actually, the opportunity won't work for this project. However, they're very, very interested in the project, and has stated that they'd like to work with us to bring this project forward, and are looking for other funding opportunities. So the current opportunity will not work, but there might be some others. We also, I put in here that we, at some point, going to meet with Denali Commission about funding opportunities. We met with Denali Commission last week, and their focus is on rural, more so like village safe water and those projects, and they do not have funding for this either. But again, we're going to keep on going to look for other options, but those were the 2 that we recently checked into. We talked a little bit at the council retreat about the organization chart, and it is in your packet as well. And you've probably received emails from AML regarding the grant symposium at the Denina Center. I am planning on attending that as well. The next day, AML has a follow-up event, so there'll be 2 opportunities, so I'll be there as well for both of them. I will be calling in for the council meeting, which is unfortunate to do that, but I'll be calling in for the council meeting on the 11th. That's all I have right now, unless you have further questions.
Do you have any questions for administration? Councilmember Ganas?
Are you looking for direction on, from council on the RV spots for the Alaska Sea Life Center?
If council has direction, I would love that.
Do you have any comments?
I mean, I would just say that I think that there's a lot of companies and organizations that are struggling with the same problem. And if, we need it for the city, I would like to see us just hold on to those. That's my personal feeling.
Where are the spots that are reserved? It is down on the waterfront, and because we do have a 2-week time frame, the Parks and Rec maps out, they have to move every 2 weeks, so Parks and Rec maps out the entire summer for them to continually move. So they're right down at Resurrection.
Just a follow-up question, does the continuously move every 2 weeks apply to the Forest Acres campground as well?
All of our campgrounds are that way.
I would support, personally, maybe some spots at the Forest Acres campground, but that's just me personally. And maybe even having a conversation of, I don't know, I don't want to make something really complicated, but offering some more spots to other people as well over there.
I guess I'm a little nervous since we didn't necessarily advertise this. I wonder if administration can maybe work directly with the Sea Life Center, because I think bringing up the idea is they have space down there. If there's a way within our code, or if there's something that can be done to allow them to utilize their space, or if there's a larger conversation that needs to be had, we should probably advertise it to make sure there's ample public.
Okay. Sounds great.
So
Thank
maybe
you.
just having a chance to meet and discuss. Any other comments? No questions for administration? Thank you. Next on the agenda is City Attorney's Report, and that starts on page 22.
Good evening. Relatively quiet month, legally speaking. We looked into positioning the city to collect parking fees as potential additional revenue, but trying to do so using personnel other than police officers for obvious reasons. So that's, I'd say, in the works, so to speak. And I'm actually not sure if there's been a big policy decision about parking fees and how, a lot of stuff that we do is kind of like getting ready for decisions that someone else has to make, right? So that we're not behind the curve. So that was one thing we worked on. Public records request, that's kind of a monthly thing. There's at least one that pops up every month. Help Parks and Rec with a liability waiver, which are nice things for people to sign. And we started, giving some advice that there's going to be some, potentially some enforcement actions. So that, again, that's kind of a preparation type phase that we're in. But hopefully it's going to be, compliance rather than enforcement. So worked a little bit on that. For the electric utility, we we worked on, I guess it'd be the equivalent of a mutual aid type deal that fire departments might have, where, they respond to help someone out in an emergency. We're kind of setting up the same type of system with UGETCH. which is good for both organizations, of course. And started to get ready to negotiate new CBA with the IBEW. Lots of letters in there, but it's a once every 3-year kind of a deal. On the, there's the leases that are on your agenda this evening, and we worked on those with attorneys for both the university and CRRC. And then a little bit of dealings with a lender on one of the harbor tenants, and that pretty much sums up the work that we did last month.
Are there any questions for the attorney? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda is the Borough Assembly Report, and I can see our Borough Assembly rep here. Welcome.
Good evening. It's going to keep turning upside down. Okay, good. Thank you for your service to the city and the community first off. The Borough, March 1st, enacted ordinance 2202 adopting the Kenai Peninsula Borough Planning Commission bylaws and defining a quorum. This was mostly a housekeeping ordinance. They've changed the amount of commissioners over the last year, and probably going to change it again. We have yet to get a Seward applicant for the Kenai Peninsula Borough Planning Commission, and I believe this is an important service to our community. We need to stay involved in Kenai Peninsula Borough government because we are part of the borough, no matter how it seems. The Kenai Peninsula Borough reviewed ordinance 21/1939 appropriating $200,000 into the school maintenance fund for snow removal and sanding to be able to continue the necessary job. You never know how much more snow we could get. This will come up for enactment at the April 5th meeting. They only have one meeting in March, so it'll come on April 5th probably to pay old bills. At the Sustainable Seward meeting on February 23rd, we discussed our past city practice of hiring LPAR workers for the summer to pick up trash around town. Usually it's high school students. My granddaughter did it one year. Probably many of you had family members do it. We thought this activity had been suspended due to COVID, but I toured the Kenai Peninsula Borough landfill last week, and I learned that they had LPAR workers picking up their trash that flows around the landfill last year. So I sure hope the city contacts LPAR to reinstate this program because it's been sorely missed the last few years. Lots of trash around the roads. I attended the Alaska Municipal League meetings in Juneau and February, and I hand-delivered colored maps of the 12 Kenai Peninsula bridges that are the borough's #1 infrastructure project for replacement, and I delivered it to 8 of the Finance Committee members. 7 of those bridges are in the Seward area. When I spoke to House Majority Whip Representative Louise Stutz, or Stutz, it's Stutz, from Kodiak, she said her goal is to get an Alaska Marine Highway System ferryport back in Seward. She pointed, it's back in Seward. So she is posed to be our new state representative, so I'm so happy to see the compatible resolution on the agenda tonight. I'm meeting with the Assistant City Manager Sol and Community Development Director Bickling tomorrow to continue the discussion of Kenai Peninsula Borough property near Seward that would be appropriate for residential housing and the process that would take. Any questions?
I have one question that you and I discussed, and I'm not sure if there's been time. You and I talked about the potential to have different property tax rates, you know, looking at maybe vacant property that hasn't been developed, or you know, if it's a second home that they're using as a vacation rental by owner, if there's different tiers of property tax that the borough would be able to. And I don't know if the finance department has had, if you've had any opportunity to look at them, or if you have any suggestions on who we could talk to about, you know, what that, if that's even possible.
I did meet with the finance department to discuss that and service area taxation, and I their first answer was no, but I pushed a little bit, and, it would be, I guess, Seward would have to adopt that different rate. And maybe not adopt a higher rate, but adopt an exemption, like, or raise the rate and then give an exemption to people that aren't doing VRBOs or Airbnbs, something like that. There are 4 states in the southeast of the United States that do charge a higher property tax for short-term rentals. I'm not quite sure the legality of how they do it, but it's something we might want to look into. So yeah, I did have time to do that.
Thank you for that knowledge. Appreciate it. Are there any other questions? Yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
it's not a question, but I just want to join you in the urgency to find a borough planning commissioner from our area, because we really need someone to step up to the plate on that. If you've got any interest at all, you could talk to one of us and we could tell you how fun it is.
And there is an East Kenai Peninsula Borough rep, so this would have to be a city of Seward.
Right, this is
You have to
within
live
the,
in this city.
sorry, within the city.
And there is a stipend, and they give you a, per diem, and they give you a place to stay, and it's not a bad gig, so think about it.
Great. Thank you so much. We very much appreciate your attendance to these meetings and your thorough reports. Next is presentations, and we have the Seward Community Health Center year-end 2021 report by Executive Director Craig Ambrosiani, and that starts on page 24 of your packet. Welcome, Craig. You have 10 minutes.
This will be pretty quick. You already received the report. A few things have happened since then. Let me just start off with the Executive Director's report. It covers quality care, workforce, project management, retention, behavioral health, collaboration, future growth, and financials. Any questions on that to start off with?
No, it was a nice report and had a lot of narrative. Thank you.
Thanks. I was involved in a meeting earlier today with Providence and CDU and Prevention Coalition and a few other organizations about the Community Health Needs Assessment that Providence has recently completed. And just to go off Mr. Baquan's comments, transportation was one of the topics in that report. And the Community Health Center looks at that as a social determinant of health. So lack of transportation can actually negatively affect people's health if they can't get regular transportation in to do, not only just to see your provider, but to take care of, just to get out and take care of mental health issues and prevent other things from happening. So just to put that out there, our agency where we get most of our funding funds from, HRSA, Health Resources Services Administration, has come out with some new direction also in the last couple of weeks. And their new direction is also on social determinants of health, putting more emphasis and financial incentives in organizations that improve social determinants of health, that work closer with social service organizations, and then improve the health of their community. So value-based reimbursement is also coming through HRSA. Any questions on those updates? Okay, then the financials are also in here. I didn't realize how small the print was until I printed it today. Because normally I just look at it on a computer screen. But does anyone want me to go over any parts of this in more detail, or is there any questions about any of the financial areas?
Well, I know it's always about, I won't say customer numbers, single point service numbers, and I know COVID was really detrimental to CHCs in getting, having that count be part of your reimbursement. How was 2021? I do see those numbers, but I just don't have an idea to compare.
It's, it's a double-edged sword kind of thing. Financially, here on our financial income statement report, we showed a loss for the year, one of the first ones we've had in a while. Most of that had to do with just dealing with all the COVID issues, trying not to stick to just financials, just do what's needed for the community and utilize the grants that we were getting to do the best we could. We also, at the end of 2020, we had some grants that could have rolled into 2021. We decided to just keep them and use them in 2020. We had a really strong bottom line in 2020, $270,000, knowing that we could get lean in 21 if COVID came back, and it did. So we got hit pretty hard, but we brought in additional staffing, and we started to get our primary care stuff back up and running. So we have a lot more going on for this year. We've been able to start to rebuild our organization. In 2020, we had 0 turnover. In 2021, we had 50% turnover. So we basically had to rebuild and retrain a lot of our staff and redo a lot of the way we do things so that we can improve. But it took until the last month for us to have some breathing room to start to do these things. So financially, for the year, we didn't do well, but as far as the net worth of the organization, it has continued to grow. And let's see, last thing. We did receive some grant funds throughout the past year from Providence, from Rasmussen, and from HRSA. And we did order a mobile clinic. So, delivery is going to be late this year, but we're having it built. Winnebago's building it for us. And we expect to go out to move past and other areas out to the Y at the end of our service area. Also provide services for events or for canneries, things like that. But then also to look at doing telemedicine from the mobile clinic at other places. So if there's somebody who moves past that needs to have a follow-up with their orthopedic surgeon, if timing works, they could come to the van and do a clinic visit with their orthopedic surgeon just from right side in. So these are some of the things we're trying to get going with this concept.
I have a couple other questions, and they have to do with women's health. Like, I know we were going to have a work session with Providence, and that didn't happen, but the mammogram mobile hasn't been down here because they're having, I think vehicle issues or staffing. Is there any opportunity for the CHC to step in and do breast exams? I know you necessarily maybe wouldn't have the right technology yet. And then the other, like, it's women's health in general, is there ability to expand? And it sounds like you're meeting on those community surveys, might get some more information, but the other thing that I always think about is rape kits. Like, a rape victim has to go to the other side of the peninsula, and there's a number of follow-ups, and if there's any break in that chain, then, when that goes to trial, there's some lost evidence and different things. Is there any planned growth in any of those areas that maybe the CHC could fill, or?
So as far as rape kits and the, I'm trying to think of the terminology, there's specifically trained nursing staff to follow through on rape incidents. They have to be specially trained, and they are, if you only have one in your community, they're supposed to be on call 24/7. And I've worked with them in Nome. We had several. Keeping those positions filled and trained was extremely difficult. So for our population, even though it's a horrible thing that happens, it's very difficult it's definitely not possible for us to fund it because there's no revenue stream and there's no funding for those types of trainings and staff. If there was funding, we'd be happy to work with Providence and do it. But right now, there's not really any funding. It's been done in the past, but it's been all voluntary. And as far as women's health goes, yes, we recognize that as a need, and we want to do more of it. We are working with our staff to figure out what more we can do. We do offer some women's health services, but we don't really have comprehensive all-around women's health that we'd like to move forward on.
Great, thank you. And when is that community survey going out? That was the other question I had. You met today about, like, is it one that's already?
It's already out.
It's the one that we've been answering. So are the results of that going to be coming out soon?
They are out.
Oh, they are out, okay.
They should be on Providence's website. It might even be on ours by now.
Okay.
Community health needs assessment, it's done every 3 years. So last one was 2018.
Oh, okay, so it's not a new one.
2021.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, we'll look for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming today.
Oh, no problem, thank you.
Next on the agenda is Kenai Mountains Public Media Inc. presentation by Wolfgang Kurtz. Welcome, sir. You have 10 minutes.
All right. Better stop me. There's a bell, right? Try to keep an eye on it. Mayor, council, and administration, and crowd. Hi. I'm Wolfgang Kurtz of Kenai Mountains Public Media. We're the local broadcaster here in Seward. At sort of both ends of the dial, as far as the FM dial goes, we're at 91.7, just above 88.1, so there's a little stop in between there. But and then if we go down past 88.1, start back at the top, we're at 106.1. And yeah, it's been a wild ride this last couple of years. Seems like our public affairs program has been all COVID all the time, and thankfully, the state quit doing that last week or the week before, so there's just not as much of that going on. We had a little minor revolt going on with the board of directors. Some of them didn't want to hear that anymore on the radio station, so thankfully, that problem took care of itself. But it definitely, as I've been hearing tonight, had an impact on a lot of organizations, and certainly on ours. The Kenai Mountains Public Media is the new licensee of the radio station, which is now a radio station and a TV station, which I'll talk about in a minute. And it was a new organization formed to move out of a nonprofit which had failed to file its 501c3 stuff properly, and there was some other baggage, so we just moved it to a clean organization. And that transfer happened on January 31st, 2020. And just a few short weeks later, the bomb fell out of everything, so it just kind of killed momentum. By that spring, we had several board of directors, people who couldn't, who either had to quit to take care of family or their business, or were mired in other things in which we've all been involved with. But it seems like the community, and we're all forging ahead. I just hear a lot of, my mind latched on to all the stuff I'm thinking about all these other things that were brought up before me now, so it's kind of hard to focus on this, because I'm like, holy cow, plus,
That's your
it's
news.
a Bear Creek.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're Seward's local media. Everything done right here in the community by people you know, or you could know very easily. My voice you'll probably hear more than I want you to on the radio, because it's hard to push people up there to do this kind of thing. Bill Lipinskis, our president, is a guy who likes to do things. You'll see it, so as far as the radio station goes, he'll be on heavy equipment, he'll be doing stuff, but he doesn't really like to do this part of it. So I just get to do this. So you'll see me until I can find somebody else to replace me. We have a local office and studio, and a mission to make Seward and Bear Creek a better place to work in, to live in, to recreate, and to do business through our informational and educational and entertainment programming. It's kind of what we do. We're broadcasters. We're the only reliable local resource for broadcast during public emergencies. We get on the, where's it say? Response time of less than 10 minutes for the last 5 emergency alert system activations. So that means we're on the mic talking about what's going on within 10 minutes, at least to this point. So that was for tsunami alerts. We haven't seen anything else yet, but we're prepared. We're broadcasting on the FM band, as I mentioned, at 91.7 and 106.1, and we have translators. So 106.1 is a project I'll talk about in a minute, but it's for downtown, and we have, I'll talk about it in a minute. We have translators out the road at 97.1 at Kenai Lake and 96.1 at Moose Pass and 99.9 in Hope. So that's all on the FM dial. Starting in January, we began broadcasting digital television to the Seward area on Channel 7. So Channel 7 was a legacy translator for the ARC's Alaska Rural Communications System. It's been around since 1980 or so. It used to be Channel 60 something out on a mountain at mile 18, and then the state got a satellite and built these facilities in Moose Pass and with the city of Seward here in Seward. And for many years there was WGN on Channel 7 and ARCS on Channel 3. And as things developed, those kind of fell by the wayside until about 2015, which fell completely by the wayside. Not only in terms of the city of Seward side, but the state of Alaska had some issues, which if I have time, I got a little bullet point here called history, but I don't think I'm going to have time. So we got that up and running. As a matter of fact, if you want to, anytime you want to turn on the TV there, we can see that. Please don't let the TV distract you, though, because it does, doesn't it? We also maintain Channel 15. We've got that up and running about the same time in January out in Moose Pass. And those are all the things we're doing right now. I would like to, without going into Academy Awards territory and thanking everybody, I'd like to mention some of our support and how you can support Kenai Mountains Public Media, including Pick, Click, Give. KMP, Kenai Mountains Public Media is speeding up. I'm watching the clock. Is one of a handful of local organizations that's on the Pick, Click, Give roster. So when you're doing your permanent fund applications, which are due March 31st, if you haven't done it yet, you can select us. If you would prefer, you can select any of the other organizations or one of our benefactors, which is the Community Foundation, Seward Community Foundation. So we've been running PSAs about this. That's something that we do more or less as we can. We're a volunteer organization, as I mentioned, so we're trying to move past that. We've applied for grants. Unfortunately, building a critical infrastructure in a floodplain and getting grants for personnel are two of the hardest things in the world. So, yeah. I would like to thank the Wells family for their contribution. I'm sure it was red, right? Because I don't play enough Grateful Dead for you.
That's right.
That was one that stuck out on the list from last year. Also, you can also support the endeavor through Amazon Smile. You can select Kenai Mountains Public Media on smile.amazon.com and so help support us. In the past, the American Legion, Claire's gone, but Mike's still here, has helped us out with, they bought a Bluetooth audio interface for field work, specifically to do the basketball games, but of course COVID got in the way, but next year. And next year it'll be, hopefully have the basketball games and other local events on TV. So that's another aspect of the TV side of things. Seward Community Foundation has been huge for us. And of course you can help support them through Pick, Click, Give. 2021, a major grant for a 106.1 transmitter for the upgrade to get boost the signal down here and across the bay at SMIC and out the bay. And other shadowed places where you can't quite get 191.7. Also a mini grant in 2021 for a transmitter backup generator. And then in 2020, a new antenna for 91.7. So a lot of support there. More in the past, studio mixing board, the KIDH FM main transmitter, just half a dozen, 6, 7 grants over the years, in the recent past. City of Seward's also helped out when I can't remember his name now, I do. because I need it. Emergency alert system upgrade, $8,000 purchase, something like that. The city of Seward came through and just bought it under one of the interim, Bridges. He saw the need and he wrote the check. Yeah, passed along here in 2021, $50,000 in CARES funding, which kept our insurance paid and some of the lights on and things like that. And also would like to mention Becky Dunn of Not So Fast Feed Store, who's a legacy broadcaster for the community. She was worked with KRXA and Skip and Marie Fletcher when she's spinning records and doing that kind of thing back in 19. I probably don't want to date her. And she's on the board, but she's also let her, much to her chagrin sometimes, let part of her property out at Not So Fast for the studio and offices for this radio station. We are an all-volunteer organization, as I mentioned. Bill Lipinskis is our president. He's retired from Spring Creek Correctional Center. Becky Dunn's our vice president. And Jeff Wolf, secretary. Jamie Finn's new on the board, and she's going to be our treasurer since we can vote her in. Sarah Dietrich, George Odell, Jacqueline Ramsey, Dolly Wiles. That's our board of directors at present, and me. And then I would like to mention that our former secretary, Sandy Roach, passed away last year, so she was on the board too. I don't think there's been anything official said about that yet. Programming, I'm out of time. I don't know, suspend the rules?
We have a busy agenda.
All right.
One more minute. Can you
Okay.
wrap it up?
Yes, I can.
Yep.
Yeah, so our project's coming up, we're completing that 106.1 upgrade. We're installing a receiver dish, hopefully, with our lease, which we gotta get in front of you guys for the site out back here. We want to put another dish in it. We want to take out that big dish on the left and put in a smaller dish together with the other dish. And for EMNet, which is the State of Alaska Emergency Network for EAS. That'll give us 3 different ways to get emergency alert system stuff in here. One via satellite, one via NOAA weather radio, and one over the internet. We are building, we have some funding and we're looking for more to finish up. We're almost there. We've got almost everything we need for Channel 17 TV in Bear Creek. So the 7 here in town is relatively low power, doesn't really hit that out there, so we've pretty much pulled everything we need together, although we're going to have our head out a little bit for Channel 17 in Bear Creek. And I know Ron Sherman is waiting on that one because he can't quite get, although Bob Valdez is happy because he's not a few blocks from here, he can get it just fine. But Ron, Bike Shop Ron, he can't get it out there, so because he's down too low. And we're also going to help to transition the local broadcast of City of Borough meetings to TV viewers. And I understand the GCI's Yukon TV is not necessarily going to carry that, but that's just cable people anyway. So we'll be putting these meetings and whatever else we can get on air, so people can get those. And as of now, the signal covers the campgrounds pretty well, so all the visitors will be able to, and their RVs with their TVs, they're pretty much all equipped already. They'll be able to immediately dial up Channel 7 and receive EAS alerts, although there's more equipment to improve that down the line. Anyway, thank you.
Well, great, thank you. Is there any questions for? Well, I appreciate you coming and giving us updates. When I first moved to Seward, we had RatNet or ARCS and then WGN, so go Cubs. But thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is public hearing. Do we need a break? Are we happy to keep going? Okay, well, we'll start with our first public hearing, ordinance for public hearing and enactment, ordinance 2022-006. Madam Clerk, for the minutes.
Ordinance 2022-006 is amending Seward City Code Title III to integrate adopted Seward Public Employee Association union language and to provide for certain clarifying amendments. This ordinance was introduced on February 28, 2022, and is coming tonight for public hearing and enactment.
Great, thank you. Do we have a motion for enactment in a second?
I move for the enactment of ordinance 2022-006.
I'll second.
Great. And I'll turn it over to administration. Do you have any comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As noted on the agenda statement, there's over 660 amendments, and I won't go through all of them. I've got a couple of them that I would just touch on. If you're looking at your agenda statement, it's on the second page at the top of the page, and there's language that clarifies the city manager's administration of the council adopted personnel policies regarding Title III and procedures related to the personnel policies that you adopt. Move further down the page at it's 315.020. There's grammatical and bulletin updates and new language that requires a pay plan to be approved by separate council resolution at the time the operating budget is approved. So when you adopt the budget in December, there will be a pay plan with it as well. At 315.050, clarifying compensation during a temporary assignment, and this aligns with the union contract. On the next page at the very top, 1315.075, all trainee language has been struck because we really don't use that language any longer. Going to the next page at 345.040. This clarifies bereavement leave, and it's 7 days of bereavement leave, previously 5 days. And then also allows leave for mothers and fathers-in-law, which we previously did not have. Further down the page on 345.075, education leave without pay has been struck due to staffing shortages and strains caused by the leave. Further down at 350.010, Christmas Eve day has been added as a recognized holiday. Previously, it was 4 hours for the holiday, so now it's the full day. And then on the last page of the agenda statement at 360.027, it's a new section regarding training expenses, but one thing that I want, it codifies what we do, but one thing that I do want to point out is that this section allows for training opportunities in the form of college classes, but prohibits payment of college classes for the sole intent of a college degree. For instance, there are some really good college classes, training opportunities that are done through colleges, and those are acceptable, but not to pay for a degree. So those are the ones that I wanted to point out as a highlight of the ordinance.
Great, thank you. So right now I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed in to speak?
We do have Adrian Stolt is the first person.
I believe I'm signed for the wrong one. I'm going to have university for the lease amendment.
Okay, and Willow?
I'm also trying to speak
Wrong
for
one?
the lease one.
Gotcha, okay.
I just wrote my name when you.
Okay. How about Jeff? Same? Yeah. And then Tara Reamer signed in, and I saw her just leave a few minutes ago, so she's probably on her way to the school.
And I'm assuming it's here.
And that is...
I don't think it's for this one though.
I don't think it's for this one.
That's what we have for this one.
Okay, is there anyone in the public wishing to speak? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this item only, and then I'll bring it back to the dais for council questions to administration. I'll kick it off with the comment. It was very helpful to have this outline and then go back and compare. So I want to thank you very much for this. And I also, very good updates and clarifications, and I very much appreciate the last one you mentioned, just to, so there's no misunderstanding about what educational opportunities we pray for. Well, I do agree with you, like the Clean Harbors Act, or the Clean Harbors designation, as an example. Those classes for employees are through the University of Southeast, so those are absolutely appropriate to take those to move for that, but it's not, paying for a college degree. So I think that that was a good way to frame that, and the language is very clear in the code. Any other comments or questions? That was a big job, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to call for a vote.
Voting on the enactment of ordinance 2022-006. Calhoun?
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That ordinance has been enacted.
Thank you. Next on the agenda are resolutions requiring a public hearing. Resolution 2022-030, Madam Clerk.
Resolution 2022-030 is approving the termination of the sublease agreement between the University of Alaska and the City of Seward, approving lease amendment 1 with CRRC, approving lease amendment 4 with the University of Alaska, and 2, approving the MOA between the university and CRRC.
And I'm looking for a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-030.
I'll second. I'll turn it over to Administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we've been working on this a long time, for several months, and so come up that CRRC wanted to go out and get some grant money, but their lease was kind of a little short for doing that, so we looked at extending it, and then working with the university, there's some land that the university needed, and it all starts out with this lease from 1970. The city leased it to the university, then subleased a section back to the city, then we subleased it to CRRC, so it's a good way to clean this up. It'd be a lot better for both entities and the city. So, if you have any questions, if I can't answer them, I know the attorney's been working on it a lot, and then some folks here to talk about it.
Thank you. So right now, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, I know we have a few folks signed in.
I technically don't have anyone signed
Okay.
in, so.
So we all know who you are, and you can, I'll open it up to folks that want to make comments. So if you want to come to the dais and just say your name and make public testimony on this. Who wants to go first?
Name, apologize for the confusion. On behalf of the University of Alaska and UAS, we think that the expansion plans for the SMC will be beneficial for the local economy, in addition to furthering the research and scientific reputation of the university and all of Alaska. We're supportive of CRRC getting the grant for which it has applied, and we appreciate the cooperation of CRRC and the City of Seward on this agreement. We urge approval by the council and quickly to enable CRC to meet its grant deadlines. Thank you, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Next, wishing.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Willow Hetrick-Price. I'm the Executive Director of the Chugach Regional Resources Commission, which we shorten to CERC because it's a mouthful. We're a federally recognized tribal consortia. We serve 7 villages in the Chugach region: Nanwalek, Port Graham, Chiniga, Tutitlik, Native Village of Eak, Valley's Native Tribe, and our local tribe here, the Katuchak Native Tribe. And we have up to 4,000 members, tribal members that we serve across the region. We have successfully operated your Mariculture Technical Center, which we call the Alutiiq Pride Marine Institute, for over 25 years. Our staff at APMI have substantially outgrown the current facility, and we are actively applying for funding to expand. We have 5 people sharing Jeff's office, and it's getting a little crowded. So between 1992 and 1997, the State of Alaska Department of Fish and Game constructed that Mariculture Technical Center with EVOS, Exxon Valdez oil spill, criminal settlement money. In the city's agreement with the state, the land and the building have to remain a Mariculture Technical Center in perpetuity. Pursuant to our lease agreement, we are responsible for maintenance and repair of the facilities, including the continuing commitment to conduct research and development in the mariculture industry. We have invested heavily in that facility, maintaining the physical plant and continually upgrading and improving the hatchery systems to keep it a state-of-the-art facility. Because I thought I had 3 minutes, now I have 5. I'm just going to mention that we also have a heat pump system at the hatchery as well. With an ambitious mission, we are now reaching out for your support and assistance to address the next 50 years. The Mariculture Technical Center, or our Alutiiq Pride Marine Institute, is without question fundamental to our efforts in serving our tribal members in recovery from the Exxon Valdez oil spill. I'll second what Norm said. The lease structure is complicated. The city leases the land to the university. The university leased it back to the city, and then we leased it from the city. And in the past, we've been operating on 5-year lease terms with the option to extend an additional 5 years if all the parties agreed. This has worked, but as we've grown and as we've expanded our services and our funding base, we need a simplified lease structure and longer lease terms. The 5-year lease term is undesirable to funders because they have no guarantee that their investment will have long-term impacts. So grant funders act like private investors, and that would be considered a high-risk applicant that they could turn down. And I know a lot of businesses and nonprofit owners on your administration can relate to that. So we are uniquely situated to access less competitive funding targeted for federally recognized tribal consortia. And with this lease stability, we are really poised to capitalize on a lot of that funding. In the last 2 years, we have added 2 full-time and 2 part-time staff. And in the next 2 years, we're predicting an additional 10 new full-time jobs in Seward and several part-time jobs in the mariculture sector. So your staff, your lawyers, the university, and CERC, we've been developing this plan for at least a year. Norm said a couple months, but I'm pretty sure it started last March. And here we are. We're looking forward to setting our sights on new goals, new infrastructure at CERC, new infrastructure at UAF, and expanding our services. So thank you for your support.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
It's a tough act to follow. My name is Jeff Petrick. I'm actually the director of Lutheran Pride, and it's been a long time since I've been in front of the council. I know many of you, many I don't. And so I'm here just to ask for your support as well. The stability that we get from this lease would be paramount for us to move ahead and have some big plans, and this is the first step towards those plans. I will add to this whole mix that the state of Alaska actually owned the facility before they gave it to you. So it was really kind of a nest. So appreciate that. One thing I've been challenged and tasked to do is to be more into the public. So many people in Seward don't even know they own the hatchery. People here in the council didn't know they own the hatchery. So I'm going to personally welcome you to come down, see what we got going on. It changes all the time. The number of programs we've done over the last 20 years is immense. So for you to get a better understanding of the building that you own, I want you to come down and take a visit. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Hey, Madam Mayor, I'm not going to speak for Tara, but I know what she wanted to say, so I'm going to say it for her. She's on the school board meeting.
Norm Regis?
Yeah.
Is that your name? You can go ahead, I just want your name.
Okay, sorry, yeah. So in the corner, in the upper right-hand corner of the lot for UAF, there's a little sliver that actually the driveway for the Sea Life Center goes through, and they have and she's done it. I can let her go, but yeah. Sorry, I'm done.
That was perfect.
Sorry, Tara Reamer, Inside City President and CEO of the Sea Life Center, just listening to the discussion after I presented at the school board about swimming pool use. So I wanted to first apologize to others in the room that I haven't reached out to about this issue. I had thought about it last week, didn't realize it was on the agenda until I got an email today about it. So just wanted to let everyone know that there is an agreement between the university and the Sea Life Center about the back gate of ours, that the property line is kind of funky, and the fire lane that goes down the side of the building and the gate is actually on the piece of property that the university leases. And if there's going to be a replat anyhow, this would be a good time to look at that. And again, I wanted to make sure everyone knows that we're aware of it. It makes sense. I'm hoping that there wouldn't be any disagreement with it. It's kind of a pretty small piece of property, and we're under a long-term agreement with the university. So with wherever you are in the conversation, if that can be considered into the process, hopefully that won't be too much difficulty.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Great, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll bring it to the dais for questions. I'll kick it off. Sorry to be talking so much tonight, but yeah, I am in support of this. On page 99 of the packet, which is page 2 of 4 of the memorandum of agreement, I know number 2 talks about the replat. And I was made aware of that issue. So I don't think we need to stop anything or amend anything with what is before us, but since that the city shall work with the university and CRC to replat the property, I wonder if there is a way to at least bring that to the surveyor's attention and see how that might be incorporated.
That could be a conversation, we go through planning and zoning for the replat, and that could be a conversation to be held at that, and the university and CRC, well, it has to be the university would be, talking with them about it.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, off the top of my head, it sounded like it would be replatted as some sort of access easement, possibly, but not necessarily to the public, but to the two, sort of like sharing a driveway with your neighbor. So that can be accommodated in the context of the official replat, because it can be shown on the plat, but it also could be a separate agreement between the two tenants of the city.
Well, it sounds like everyone's aware of it. So. Is there any other questions or comments? Did you have a question? Great, well, I appreciate the invitation to come down, and I know that you've been making presentations around in the community, so I think lots of exciting things are ahead. Madam Clerk, could you call for a vote, please?
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2022-030. Wells?
Yes.
Demas?
Yes.
Casagranda?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Next on the agenda for public hearing is Resolution 2022-031. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2022-031 is authorizing the sale of parcel number 145022419 containing 25.395 acres to the State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities for the improvement project number Z548570000 in improving the Seward Airport for the fair market value that has been determined to be $2,000.
I'm looking for a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-031.
I'll second.
Thank you. So we'll turn it over to administration, and this item starts on page 135 of your packet.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As stated, an appraisal was done for the fair market value and in code. The council can approve sale of the parcel for that fair market value, and it is at the request of the DOT that it is sold to them for their facilities and to protect against further damage from recurrent flooding of the runway.
Go ahead and open it up for public hearing. Is there anyone signed in to speak?
No, ma'am.
Is there anyone in the public wishing to speak?
Go ahead.
Carol, I saw you first, so let's have a
Okay. Carol Griswold, Inside City Limits. Dear Council and Administration, I'm sorry that my more lengthy comments on the airport right-of-way acquisition resolution sat in my draft box until 5:30 p.m. You should have received them now for future reference. There are many significant errors in this resolution. The sale of public land is a very important action that should be clear and accurate. The intent, parcel, description, maps, quitclaim deed, and many other important documents are inaccurate, confusing, and misleading. The agenda statement on page 136 refers to the sale of parcel number 145022419 for improving the airport, including reconstruction of the existing 2 runways, placing erosion control measures, widening the taxiway, and installing new lighting, marking, and fencing, none of which apply to this right-of-way acquisition. The resolution should refer to the acquisition of parcel 5 and the purpose, which is right-of-way acquisition to protect aircraft approach to the new runway. For example, on page 136, the background and justification should be replaced with an accurate description and intent. The City of Seward owns parcel 145022419, which contains approximately 1,000 acres of tideland submerged lands at the north end of Resurrection Bay. The State of Alaska Department of Transportation, ADOT, is requesting purchase of 25.395 acres, described as Parcel 5 in the Seward Airport Improvement Project replat, as a right-of-way acquisition to protect the aircraft approach to the new runway. Parcel 5 is appraised at the fair market value of $2,000. And then continue this change. The property consists only of tideland submerged lands that have no improvements. It is located due south of the airport property, bounded to the west by the Alaska Railroad Terminal Reserve in Seward, Town Site 1 North and 1 South, Range 1 West, Section 34, and 3 Seward Meridian Southwest. That's what this is about. That is not in this resolution. And that's why I'm asking for these changes. In addition, the parcel is unzoned. Should it be rezoned to industrial during this process? If there are section lines bisecting the property as noted by the appraiser, should they be vacated? I urge council to postpone this to the next meeting so that these important corrections to the documents can be made before a public asset is sold. Thank you very much.
Bruce Jaffa, outside city limits, and I'm glad I waited for Carol because she eloquently and succinctly put forth the arguments of this piece of property far better than I could. And what I want to make sure is that I don't appear or sound like an obstructionist. Many of you know that we were a part of a group that worked very hard to get the Department of Transportation to do an alternate runway to this, and frankly, I think if we had the current administration, we would have been more successful. But we didn't get what we wanted, and we're going to wind up with what the OT is going to put down our throat. That doesn't really mean we have to swallow it nicely, and frankly, $2,000 for a piece of property that is used by many people for recreation. I go down there all the time. It's going to be, it'll be removed and nothing replaced in its stead. I just don't understand how this could be taken without a grain of salt. It probably should be moved forward. Like I said, I'm not an obstructionist, but based on what I just heard Carol say, I would agree you should probably take more time and completely review this. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and it's back at the dais. Are there any questions for administration? Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone this to the next meeting and for purposes to hear from administration if there's any repercussions or if that will affect us.
I'll second that.
So to administration, what is the timeline? Well, do you mind if I ask them that question?
No, absolutely, that's why I wanted to.
What is the timeline for the state asking that this be approved?
Madam Mayor, I do not believe postponing will cause any issues.
Go ahead.
And then, could we ask for some of these questions to be addressed by, I guess, administration, so we could get some further clarification?
Yes, we will bring that back. And I'm assuming that the state also provided most, if not all, this language, so maybe a lot of these questions are for the state.
Right.
To clarify, especially since they had an appraisal and some survey work done. Are there any other questions to add to that? Okay, Madam Clerk, we're voting on the postponement, and so I'm just assuming from your motion the postponement is into the next meeting? Next regular meeting, and was that adequate time?
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Clerk?
Voting on the motion to postpone resolution 2022-031 to Tuesday, March 29th. Calhoun?
Yes.
Casagrande?
Yes.
Demas?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
And Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That motion is approved.
Just to clarify my understanding, or maybe my expectation, that will be up again for public hearing at the next meeting?
It will be a public hearing item
Again, thank you. I know there were some people looking at me for maybe a break. Should we take a 5-minute break? Okay, so we'll come back here at 8:30 to continue.
I'm gonna be back down here.
Okay, we're ready. Okay, so I'm gonna call us back to order after our short recess, and we are through our public hearing items. Unfinished business, there is none. New business, the first item under new business that has not already been approved is Resolution 2022-035. Madam Clerk, if you could read that title into the minutes.
Resolution 2022-035 is authorizing the city manager to waive provisions in Seward City Code 7.15.010 for the Seward School properties in order to accommodate the need for overflow camping on the 4th of July holiday weekend.
And I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-035.
I'll second. And then I'll turn it over to administration.
Good evening, council members. So, just to give a little history on this, and I know the history from the other side is when I was principal at the middle school. A lot of 4th of July, it happened and then it kind of dropped away for a while, but we would get permission to have overflow camping up at the high school and middle school properties. If we wanted, it was an option. But what it did, and I actually called up the person who worked for Parks and Rec, Mike Kinney at the time, and he was managing the campgrounds, and he said it was actually really helpful to them, which I did not know. But what it did is we have the massive amount of people here on the 4th of July, and so it kind of helped in two ways. One is that it took all these people that would normally illegally camp out or just like find a spot wherever they could, and it provided a spot for them, because people will show up and they're going to camp somewhere. And because I remember there were signs out on the highway and that type of thing, and they were in control of doing. They had to like check them in, they had to monitor their sites, they'd have people there all night, they took care of their messes, they did all of those things. And I didn't want to give it my 4th of July, so I didn't do it, but I know the high school did at one time. And so then for the high school or middle school or elementary school, I think David Kingsland did it for a couple of years as well. What it did, they actually got to charge for their sites. And then what that would do is that would give a little bit of money for whoever, like if there was an athletic team that wanted to support that, they would take that money, they would have parents that were there all weekend that would monitor the sites and do all that, so it would actually help give some money to whoever was supporting that program. So they did reach out to us. I don't think it's been done for a couple of years, but they did reach out to us. The high school principal, Dr. Burns, reached out to us and asked if they could get permission to do that. In the past, I believe the permission was always just kind of granted. There was never like a way for us to do that so that we're actually doing it the correct way. And so that's why we introduced this this evening. So happy to answer any questions around that.
Councilmember Cohen, did you want to start?
Yeah, I pulled this off the consent agenda, just basically for the reason to get an explanation, so everybody would understand the city wasn't doing this to try and give ourselves more camp spaces, that we were actually approached by the school for this, and that it was their responsibility to monitor those campsites, clean them up. It's a question that came to my mind, being in the business I'm in, is, are there alcohol restrictions on school property? Is that even gonna, be monitored? It's really hard to keep track of when you've got 7 motorhomes parked up there. There's probably gonna be something in one of those motorhomes other than iced tea. And that's not really, I guess, our concern. That's more the school's concern. I just wanted people to be aware that the city was not going to be responsible to clean up, maintain, monitor, patrol it, any of that kind of thing. And that the city was approached to do this. We didn't come up with it on our own.
It's clarification. Did you have a question, Councilmember Pasquarelli? I think that is helpful to get that explanation on the record. Thank you. Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to call for a vote on this.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2022-035, Casagrande?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Demas?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Mayor Terry? Yes, that resolution is approved.
Next on the agenda is Resolution 2022-038. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2022-038 is directing PACAB to create and lead an ad hoc committee of interested community members to identify available funding sources to continue the ground source sewer district heat system project to completion.
And I'm looking for a motion in a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-038.
I'll second.
And I'll turn over to administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of thoughts that I had, and one came out of the council retreat and DCRA, that should this committee be created, it is underneath the city, meaning it's under the Open Meetings Act. All meeting provisions need to be followed, the agenda, notice provisions, if there is a packet, minutes, recording the meetings, so on and so forth. So that would need to be followed. We also do have our grant writers with R&M have identified possible sources of grants that we're watching, and of course we're watching all the time for any sources at all. But I guess my biggest, if it is approved that does need to happen, it's a public meeting, then all the provisions need to be followed.
Is there any discussion or questions?
Just clarification then, so if we did approve this, that would involve public notice costs, administration being present at the meeting costs, and so is there an alternative to this type of committee that could happen other than one authorized by us? Like, could people just on their own form a group and discuss without those provisions?
They can, and then as long as it's not sanctioned by the city, so, you know, by this council saying, yes, go forward, that's sanctioning, so to speak, probably not the right term, but by the city, and then it falls under. But if a group was to form on their own without, you know, the city, then it's a group, it's a private group on their own.
Just to follow up then. And so if these people that want to form the committee did that and met on their own, they could certainly come back and report either to administration or to council during public time, and it would accomplish basically the same thing as the expense and stuff of having an official committee. Okay.
Mine's more of a comment and then maybe followed by a question, but when I was on the Recreation Committee, we were an ad hoc committee, and being an ad hoc committee actually stifled us a lot in many different ways, because if it wasn't properly noticed, you know, if something came out of one meeting, it's not like you could just meet again. You had to have a quorum. There was maybe not so much the cost would be my concern with this, but I just want the group to be aware the boundaries that will be put on their meetings due to creating this. And I don't know if Mr. Jaffa is still here, if he's sitting behind Stephen, I can't see. No, okay, because I was gonna ask if maybe, if there's anybody in the committee, if we could maybe suspend the rules and see if the committee that is interested was aware of that.
Yeah, I guess that was my concern, because it was kind of incongruent what I heard at the podium about having the ability and the flexibility to not be the government and go out. And then my concern is then, especially coming out of our trainings from the state on Saturday, hitting that even more home, that even those ad hoc committees need to have public notice, you know, everyone has to be able to attend, everything gets published. So I'm not sure that they realize what this will entail. And then I just have one more thing to say is, the only other thing with this is, if we were going to approve this tonight, I would like to have a discussion about how many people, what the total of that ad hoc committee. Like, is it a 5-person ad hoc committee? Like, I have concerns about, you know, is it a 25-person ad hoc committee? Is it a 3-person I'd like, if we're gonna approve this tonight, I'd like council to make that determination ahead of time.
Not to be the postponer person, but if I could move to postpone, I'll just leave it at that.
I'll second for discussion.
If I may. Yeah. I just because nobody from the committee is here to speak, and I feel like the committee chair, I think Bruce is the committee chair, and PACCAB could have the next 2 weeks if we postpone to the next regularly scheduled meeting, to discuss whether this is something that I support creating the committee if it's something that the committee actually wants, but, yeah.
I know that, I would suggest if we postpone it, we wouldn't postpone it till the 29th, we'd actually postpone it to the 11th, so that they can have it on their agenda of April 6th, with some maybe information from the clerk's office talking about the OEM and some of those the notice requirements.
You will be able to discuss it during your special
That's
meeting
true.
on the 29th.
Yeah, that's true. So I think we would, so if we postpone it till the 29th and then, I don't know.
Then you act on it following.
We just have a half hour with that group though, that's gonna take up that whole discussion. It might be good for them to be able to talk about it at their meeting,
You can postpone it again.
the pros and cons. Go ahead.
If I may, I'd like to postpone to the 29th, and then per the city clerk's advice, if it needs to be postponed again, then we can, but then that way it's something that's cleaned up and not dangling any longer than it needs to.
Just speaking to the postponement, I think that, again, if they had more information on the restrictions, they might, I would like to postpone it until they fully understand the ramifications of what they're asking. That's what I would speak to. Any other discussion?
So just to be clear, this motion would be to postpone to March 29th, and if this fails, perhaps another postponement motion may be made. So postponing to March 29th, Calhoun,
Yes.
Casagranda,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Mayor Terry. Yes. Okay, that motion of postponement has been approved.
Next on the agenda is other new business items and non-objection to the renewal of the liquor license number 324, beverage dispensary for the Seward Ale House. And prior to a motion, yes?
I need to declare a conflict of interest as I am 50% owner of the Seward Ale House, and the outcome of this vote will affect me substantially financially.
I'm going to go ahead and rule that you do have a conflict of interest. And now I'm looking for a motion of non-objection and then also a second to that.
I'll move for the non-objection to the renewal of liquor license number 324, beverage dispensary for the Seward Ale House.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, let's call for a vote, please.
Voting on the non-objection to the liquor license for the Seward Ale House, Calhoun,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Casagranda,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That has been approved.
And then, oh. Sorry. We are down to informational items and reports. There are, just for the minutes, Councilmember DeMoss rejoined us at the dais. Informational and items and reports, there are none. Citizen comments. Is there anyone in the public wishing to make comments?
Tony Bachman, Inside City Limits. I have 5 minutes, I'm gonna use all 5 of them.
Yes.
So, I was talking, mentioned with Craig about how transportation can affect different things. I think there's also other ways to look at grant funding in that now, and using that research. It looks like it could be possibly even more plausible now to look at other sources of funding for transportation outside of town. I know that it's, maybe it's just to start a conversation, and maybe it goes to planning and zoning, maybe there's something, but I know that I've always felt, even when I was on council, that we always come here, we're complaining about all these problems. It's like we need solutions. So the best thing to do is come and bring solutions. I also had another idea that I couldn't fit in the 2 minutes before. So the other idea, and I have had for a long time, was making 4th Avenue a walking street in the downtown area, just because there's always so much like RVs parked there and longer trucks, and in the summertime, seasonally. And I know before everyone freaks out that, you know, there's research to prove that creating walkable streets are more, drive more business to the businesses that are down there. I know that there are some businesses who have some nightly rentals and things in there, which might cause a little strain, but maybe there could be some parking at the top of the street that's reserved, or something for certain, businesses, or if maybe at the end of the street, there's 4 cars can park side by side at the end, and 4 at the bottom, that's like 8, Sometimes those people don't, have cars, or maybe they can work out something with parking in the back. But I think it'd be really cool to come down on 4th Avenue and see that kind of like open area, and maybe have the businesses that are out there now with COVID. It's like to get out there, sit outside, or tables if there's some way we can do that. Or so that I thought was a really good idea. And then what that would spur is parking, right? And then we go to parking fees and we do all this. And I had this huge idea a long time ago that railroad lot that's sitting out there, and they just redid the turn in by Avtech. There's a huge for lease, I don't know if it's for lease anymore, but they used to have a big sign there, gravel lot. And I was like, why can't you just put a big sign that says park here, keep the cars out of town, or the RVs out of town, if they're just visiting, park here, extend the bus that already comes down that road to the train depot, pull around in that parking lot there, pick up those people, put a couple porta potties there, charge them for the parking. $5, it doesn't have to be crazy, just to upkeep the parking lot and pay for the insurance. Get the cars that are out of town, release the strain of all the cars inside Seward, inside downtown, and keep the parking out there. I thought it would be a really cool thing. But that's also just things to think about, and moving forward, I think it's going to be a crazy, fun summer, and I'm really excited. And I really miss seeing you guys here, and I really miss being there, so being here with you. So I guess I'm not going to use all my time, but actually, I just recently joined the board of the Community Foundation, and their annual awards banquet is coming up, and it's really cool to see and hear even how we talked about earlier, how much great things they do for the community, and really that PFD is coming up, and maybe people want to put a little portion of that to the Community Foundation. They do really great work, and being a part of that process and seeing all the people that apply and all the good things that come out of that is really cool. So your donation goes there and stays there forever. That's so cool, it just keeps growing and creating wonderful things in Seward. So thank you all for your service. It's so nice to come back and see productive meetings and just moving forward, and it's just really cool. And thank you to Jeanette and Stephen. I think you guys are amazing. And 35 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
Tara Reamer, Inside City Limits. I'll take Tony's 35 seconds. Since I'm still here, just wanted to say really similar to what Tony just said at the end. I haven't been to a lot of council meetings recently, and this has been just a joy. I apologize for in and out. I had to talk about pool use fees, and I think that went well. And thank you to technology. I know I can listen to the session here. I can watch the YouTube online for what I missed here, and I was able to do that all by Zoom meeting. So, but this is such a nice, it just feels good. And I hope you all feel that, and just wanted to say thank you to the administration, to all of council, to the clerk and other staff. It was a joy to be able to come and talk to you a few times, and since I'm still here, I figured I might as well just say goodbye and thank you. So,
thank you, Tara.
And let's get that snow melted.
Yes,
you can do something about that.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay. Next on the agenda is council and administration comments in response to citizen comments, and I'll let administration kick it off.
I think the only comment that I would have, and I know I've reiterated it in my CMR report, and that I just want to state again that regarding the heat loop project, that we are actively looking for any grant funding. Our grant writer is, it's a renewable energy, possibly there will be grant funds. So we are continuing to pursue all options. It has been voiced to us that it may not fit in the round hole. It's a square peg project that may not fit. However, there's interest in the technology of it. And so hopefully, maybe that'll generate funding, because it really isn't fitting into funding categories. So the interest in the technology and the science of it may actually help. So I just want to reiterate that again.
Councilmember West?
Well, thank you for the detailed report on this. It did make reading everything so much easier. I appreciate everything that you're doing with this heat loop project as well, and everything else. So thank you for always being on top of everything.
Councilmember Calhoun?
Yeah, the city administration's always doing a good job. Appreciate that. The only thing I really have to say, other than thanks everybody that came in and talked to us tonight, it's great to see people being interested and involved. The one thought I had on the ad hoc committee, don't mind postponing it. Don't know that I'm really in favor of something like that. I don't want to see us stifle people's ingenuity and their thought process, because I know there's a lot of people out there that I talk to, and they have a lot of great thoughts and stuff, but this isn't their gig. And so I'm hoping that some folks can get their own group together to look at stuff like this. There's other things coming up, I think, that the same kind of thing would help with, other projects where there's a lot of knowledge and skill levels out there. They just don't want to be hampered and tied to all the rules and regulations that we are. So, yeah, I'm supportive of the committee. I just don't know that we should be the one driving it. Yeah, thanks.
I probably should have said it during her report, but I wanted to say thank you to Cindy Eklund, our borough rep, for such detailed report and really being a go-getter for Seward. It was really exciting to hear that there might be some land that the borough is willing to help us on our housing crisis. And, you know, as far as our housing crisis, not to go off on a tangent, but I think we have two pieces of a puzzle. We have a housing crisis that's seasonal, that's been with us since, I was just telling somebody, I think it started in 2007 is the last time I can remember someone coming here for 6 months and finding a place. And then we have a year-round crisis that's happening, and this one's new. This one's been here forever. So I just, you know, I really think it is an employer's responsibility to find housing and solve their housing issues, but right now we're just stuck in such a trap because there's not even land for anybody to begin to find a solution. So I really appreciate that, and my condolences to Sandy Roach's family. I had no idea. I just learned about that this evening, so sorry for being so far behind the ball, but yeah, my condolences. Thank you.
I also wanted to say thank you to Cindy Eklund for a great report, for being here consistently, for working with our city administration on collaborative efforts to solve local problems. I think that's great. Tony, thanks for bringing your great ideas. I love the transportation idea. And I would love for admin to maybe reach out to, I don't know, the free shuttle folks or to Seward City Tours, or I don't know. I would love to talk about that more and see if there's something that we can do, or if council as a body is interested in that. I think that's all I have, except also thank you, admin, for just being so great to work with and getting us all the information and easy ways to understand, and just being always there with all of our questions and everything. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you.
Okay, well, I have a few things. I'm one of the, I've had citizens call me asking about Alpar and the kids picking up trash, so maybe we can find out more about how to reactivate that if we can get kids to do it, because it's really important. I've had quite a few people, and I've asked administration about that. We have a history talk coming up on St. Patrick's Day on Thursday at 7 o'clock. If you want to come to a history presentation by Lee Pileski at the library at 7 p.m. on this Thursday, he's going to talk about a time in the 20s when we had, I think, 5 U.S. Navy ships here in the Port of Seward, and I've not heard about this, so this is something new for me even. And so we've got that. RBHS is sponsoring it, and it's free. I'm attending by Zoom my hopefully last reapportionment committee meeting for the borough tomorrow. And I wanted to just clarify what we are reapportioning because of the census is the borough assembly districts and the school board districts, not the state reapportionment, not the thing that some people were thinking it was involving the Senate and the House. So it's just that, and we've come up with something that'll be on the ballot this fall where you will be asked to select things staying the same with a 9-member assembly, or we had to put an alternative in 11, and we've come up with, I think, some pretty adequate maps that have complied with the requirements of one person, one vote, wherein Nikiski lost some people and the Kenai area gained some people, so we had to move a few people. But the bottom line is it won't affect our district at all. So I think that it's been a great committee to be on. I just wanted to give a brief report about that. And I agree with Tara that it's actually almost a joy to come and sit through council meetings now with the way things are going. It's way, way better than it had been for a period of time. So that's what I got.
I just have a couple of items only. I remember Quabi Park, that structure was built with a transportation grant, that bus stop, and that was probably 20 years ago, I don't know, 18 years ago. But so there are transportation grant funds available. And then with the transportation piece from out of town, I don't know if there's an opportunity to work with the chamber to see if there's some businesses that might want to pool their resources. And at least initially, there might be some opportunity there. And with the heat loop project, I don't know that R&M has this ability, but it might be interesting to know if they're looking at both government grant funds or if they are also looking at private grant funds. It would just be nice to clarify that. And I did see Mark Cuban at a Mavericks Jazz game, but I didn't get close enough to ask him about funding it. But, and then I just want to note that March 28th, the city offices are closed. It's a Monday, and that's why our next council meeting will be Tuesday, March 29th. So put that on your calendars. And again, happy birthday to the Legion, 103 years old. And I don't know what our community would be without the Legion that we have. And that takes a huge pool of volunteers serving our community. And I'm just thankful for that organization and everything that gets done, both serving our veterans and even just being willing to reach out to active military and then our community as a whole. So we're at the portion of our agenda where we're going to go into executive session to evaluate the city attorney. So do we need another break before we make that motion? No. So I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session as soon as we're able to clear the room to evaluate the city attorney, to include just council and the city attorney. And do I need a second?
No.
And we need to vote on that, sorry.
Voting on the motion to move into executive session to evaluate the city attorney. Casagrande?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
DeMoss?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That motion is approved.
Thank you.